What is going on, you guys? It is Jake here, bringing you all a Friday podcast for your listening and viewing pleasure. This one is going to be an interview show between myself, Eric, and Matt Weyrich of the Baltimore Sun. Matt is one of the new guys on the beat, one of the new young guys on the beat. He joined the Sun's coverage of the Baltimore Orioles in January. As he gets into in the interview, he's basically in his third week on the job, I think he said. So been a tumultuous start for him here, in a good way, and actually in a little bit of a bad way, but we didn't really get into that. This one was recorded ahead of the opening of spring training, so we didn't get into anything as far as the injuries went to Bradish and all the other guys, Basalo, that are dealing with injuries to open camp. So wanted to let you guys know ahead of time on the interview, and just wanted to provide this quick intro here to explain everything, and also wanted to go ahead and plug the Jimmy's Famous Seafood Tailgate event that is going to be happening on opening day. Going to be featuring DJ Pauly D as the headliner. They're going to have one Nick Markakis in the house, as well as yours truly and all the rest of the X52 podcast crew. We're going to be hoping to do a live show out there, just have a little fun with it, mix it up, hopefully get some guests rotating in and out. It's going to be a really fun time. So if you want to get tickets to that, and I don't know why you wouldn't, head to jimmysfamousseafood.com and check out their events tab. But like I said, it's going to be an absolute smasher of a time. It's going to be a banger. So go ahead and get your tickets to that. Come out and have a drink with the boys, watch the live show, watch DJ Pauly D, and just have a good time as we get ready to welcome the boys of summer back into Camden Yards. So I just wanted to record this intro to, like I said, preview Matt Weyrich, going to be coming up here in a second, and to plug the Jimmy's Famous Seafood Tailgate happening on March 28th. So like I said, get your tickets to that. Let's have some fun, and I'll throw it over to the interview. Thanks, guys. All right, we now welcome on a very special guest. First time appearing on these airwaves. Hasn't been on the beat too long for the Orioles with the Baltimore Sun. It's Matt Weyrich. How we doing tonight, sir?
Doing well, and you nailed it on first try, the last name. That's nice.
Well, it's good, and I probably should do this myself. I think I did at one point, but it's good that you put the pronunciation in the Twitter bio. That's always very helpful.
Mm-hmm. I try. Everyone gets it wrong, so I'm pretty used to it.
Yep, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, like I said, you just came on the beat. Was it last month? You're just starting out here in 2024?
This is my third week on the beat, so it has been a hell of a 3 weeks, let me tell you.
Yeah, exactly. It's been tumultuous, exciting times though, particularly with the ownership transition. And that initially it broke before you were on the beat, kind of, at least the idea germinating a little bit. How closely were you tracking that when it started? Because like you didn't have the job yet, I guess. Maybe you were in talks for it. What's it been like covering since all that kind of became official?
Yeah, the news came down on my second day. Day one was getting my laptop and my pass for our office, and day two was covering the biggest breaking news story of the last 30 years. So for the Orioles, so it was a crazy start for sure. Obviously, had seen the rumblings back in December. I worked in the DC market, so looked at a lot of things from the national point of view and how they're connected through MASN and things like that. So it was always of interest to me professionally to follow along in what was going on. And I also worked at an RSN as well, Monumental Sports Network. So just industry news kind of relevant to me there too. But certainly needed to play catch up a little bit right off the bat there, figuring out who David Rubenstein was and what he might bring to Baltimore as an owner. And I think a lot of fans are pretty thrilled with his potential and what he can do. So yeah, it's been crazy. Obviously the Corbin Burns news broke 2 days after that. And all the while my partner, Jacob Calvin Meyer, was on paternity leave. So it was a lot of solo coasts in there, but have a great staff of editors and other reporters I work with and leaned on them a ton.
It is kind of, and like the workplaces say this all the time, like, oh, we're kind of, it's a sink or swim kind of thing. Like we like to throw people into the fire and see how they do. That's like the ultimate, like, hey, we're throwing you right into it right now. Oh, by the way, your partner's on paternity leave. Like, and
the
like
hectic, fast-paced environment meme. I think it actually might be true in your case.
Yes.
100%.
Yes. 100%. And again, like people, how many people have worked in your job being like, I would love to cover a sale right now. Like that would be so great. And you just like walked right in, and like Buster Olney is probably seething, being like, this guy, like he has everything I want. But again, it's only been about 3 weeks. What's kind of been your first impression of the beat, and now that you've at least kind of had a taste for it, and again are kind of, I guess, in the pool and sinking or swimming? I would say you're swimming pretty well. It's your first impression.
I try. Yeah, it's been cool. I know that I am stepping. It's kind of perfect timing the way I see it. With how I started is how this new era of Orioles baseball really kicks off. I mean, this is the first year that we're going in where the team has not just expectations to make the playoffs, but expectations to win and go deep into the playoffs. Now with the owner as well, I mean, them making moves to win now and acquiring Burns, like this is a very different Orioles team than ones that past beat reporters have covered for the last few years. So I understand that things aren't normally like this, and I'm trying to take that into account when writing. But everybody I've talked to so far has been extremely welcoming. You know, not just people at the Sun, but other beat reporters as well, and people within PR. So I'm not down in Sarasota yet. I'm getting down there next week. I'm very excited to meet everybody in person. Have met a few people already, but certainly going to get a real grasp of all the people that are involved, not just within the Orioles, but the coverage itself. And I'm super excited.
Yeah, we and we'll talk about Sarasota too. You mentioned Jacob is going down there, coming fresh off paternity leave on Valentine's Day. That's going to be quite something for him. But I mean, talk about getting thrown into the fire. I mean, you were out at the was it the owners' meetings where you were kind of tweeting a little bit about all that had been progressing with the transaction and everything. What were some of your takeaways for sort of MLB's perceptions at large about the transaction and how smoothly they expect it all to go over? Because I think you put it out on Twitter that it sounds like they're all hoping for this thing to just kind of be lock, stock, and barrel.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, while, David Rubenstein hasn't been installed yet, it certainly seems like everybody is motivated to make it happen quickly. And that includes, Rubenstein and Angelos themselves. I think where we're at in the process right now, they just need to get a lot of paperwork and approvals done for this to move quickly. It's really in the hands of Angelos and Rubenstein to take care of business. From the sense that I'm gathering, Major League Baseball and the owners within don't plan to hold this process up at all. There is certainly a vetting process that has to be done. It's already underway, but it's not like Rubenstein is some kind of like hidden billionaire that's come out of the woodwork to buy a team. He's a very famous guy, and certainly his history and spending is very well documented. So it's not something that is expected to take a while. So I would imagine that is going to be the case, that within 6 weeks perhaps that something happens. That's been the time frame that's been floated around. But I think, as has been the case in many situations over the last couple of decades, MASN is potentially the only thing that could hold things up. Whether that being MLB using its right to force the Orioles to include it in some type of sale. That whether that is going to happen remains to be seen, but it's something that I think, Rubenstein, his familiarity with Angelos and how quickly this all appeared to have come together, it seems like something that could be worked through in a timely manner.
I'm shocked, number one, that MASN could be a holdup, or there's something hung up there. That doesn't sound like MASN at all. But again, how caught off guard were you by the Corbin Burns trade? Again, I mean, you're sitting there doing the deep dive on Rubenstein, and then like you said, you blink, and it's like, oh, by the way, now they have a top 5 pitcher in baseball. Again, a lot of the fan base, we had kind of just been like, I guess this is who we're rolling with. Everyone was so hyper focused on Cease, and Burns' name was always thrown around, but I don't think anyone ever really kind of thought that he was like an actual target. But again, how kind of caught off guard were you at that news when that trade came down? What was it, 2 weeks ago tomorrow, I guess?
Yeah, no, it definitely, the timing was very interesting. And, I don't think that the two moves were necessarily connected between the new owner taking over, and this move being made, especially considering it's a move that only includes 2024 and has no future commitments. But at the same time, we were starting to plan our entire full week rollout of content centered around Rubenstein, and all of a sudden we have this Cy Young caliber pitcher that we need to cover as well. So that certainly altered our content planning. But as far as the move itself, I think that I was listening through all of Mike Elias's comments that he had made dating back to the end of last season and all of his press conferences. And one thing that stood out to me from his comments from the Birdland Caravan was he didn't seem like a guy who was done. It definitely gave to me an idea of, this has been a slow moving market. You look at free agency, there's so many big names out there. There haven't really been a ton of major trades. And as he noted, 2 of the biggest starting pitchers to change team this offseason came out of the AL East. Chris Sale being traded to Atlanta from Boston, and Tyler Glass now going from the Rays to LA. Neither of those teams were going to trade those guys to the Orioles. So as far as other, big name pitchers changing hands, it really hadn't happened. And Burns was a guy who it did seem like, at a certain point, the Brewers started to add pieces. They signed Rhys Hoskins, which seemed like a win now move. And it seemed like they were going to go all in on keeping Burns. And then all of a sudden this move drops. And certainly it's surprising that the Orioles are finally willing to orchestrate a move that sacrifices future potential for win now pieces. But if any time it's the time to do it, I think it's right now. This team looks ready. It has, not complete roster, like the Dodgers maybe are rewriting that definition. But certainly the Orioles look as close to a World Series contender as any team in the American League.
Sure. Yeah. And you mentioned the idea of him not being done in relation to this move. And I think it's super interesting because they had gone out and done the Kimbrel thing. And that was kind of looked at as by a lot of fans. And I think we had our trepidation as well, as like, are they done here? And, no, obviously they're going to get Burns, but it does kind of make me wonder, like, there's still some guys out there. There's some free agent names out there. There may be some trade targets out there that could really push this roster even further over the top. Do you expect or think it's a possibility that they could go and make a move for that veteran bat or, an outfielder or whatever it is, maybe move some of these prospects that they still kind of have swelling up in the pipeline?
I think that as for right now, it doesn't sound like Mike Elias plans to make any major moves. I mean, I think that it's notable that in the last, 2 weeks, 10 days, he's acquired 4 fringe major leaguers to fill out the 40-man roster. So now if they do sign anybody, somebody would have to get waived, DFA'd, whatever. And so that is certainly now, Mike Elias operates like a general manager who wants to maintain control of players for as long as possible, and giving up control of any single one player is a big decision. So I have a feeling they're going to want to, especially on the position player side, see how things work out in camp. Felix Bautista is the only player we know is headed to the 60-day IL at this point. But if anything else crops up and an injury happens in camp, I certainly wouldn't rule them out making a deal then. But as far as adding major league talent right now, it doesn't look like there's a near move on the horizon.
You talked about heading down to Sarasota in a couple of weeks. Is there anything specific that fans should be looking for down in Sarasota? Any of the storylines? Obviously, the big one is Jackson Holiday. But I kind of take him out of the equation. What's something else that fans should be kind of focusing on and paying attention to the storylines out of Sarasota?
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see Colton Cowser and Heston Kjerstad and how they perform here in spring training, because it does seem like there's a path for at least one of them to make the roster, potentially both, and potentially neither, which is such an unusual position for two guys who have certainly proved themselves at the AAA level and are established top 50 prospects in the game. And on almost any other team, these guys would be getting the inside track to a starting job. But for the Orioles, they are locked in basically 3 starters. And as I pointed out on Twitter earlier today, they have a ton of outfield depth and a lot of options for guys. Jorge Mateo is going to be taking reps at center field in spring. So what they plan to do with these 2 guys, and as well as Kobe Mayo, I think is super interesting because they've certainly showed they deserve a chance. But with the Orioles' luxury of prospects and really position player talent in general, there just might not be room for them. But that doesn't mean that one of them or both can't make the opening day roster. They can certainly get creative. And we know Brandon Hyde loves to use his platoon matchups as much as possible.
For you personally, and your job is kind of like a dream job for a lot of baseball fans. And obviously there's a lot that goes into it, and it's a lot of hard work, obviously. But what kind of excites you about some of these players that you're going to get to watch? Is there anyone specific? You mentioned a lot of these prospects that really we haven't got a ton of opportunities to see. You talked about Kobe Mayo a little bit. Like, that's a guy that obviously is a big name up around here, but we haven't seen a ton of him, hasn't been in the majors yet. So is there anyone that you personally are kind of really fired up to get an eye on?
I've heard really good things about James McCann and the kind of insight that he brings. One of the obviously the biggest veterans that's going to be on this team, and something I think is interesting with Burns coming over is he was a National League pitcher and now pitching in the American League, facing almost completely new competition. I'm really interested to kind of dive in with him and McCann, somebody who has switched leagues before and works with pitchers, to kind of provide that insight. So that's a little sneak preview of the story I'm looking at covering when I get down there. But these guys, almost all of them are new to me. I grew up in the DC area. I was a Nationals fan as a kid, and I got the chance to cover that team for 2 years in my first couple of years with NBC Sports Washington. And that was kind of a dream come true because I was covering a lot of guys that, I'd grown up rooting for. But as I got established in this career, you start to look at, athletes and teams a different way because, they're just people that you talk to in a room, a couple times a week. And start to forge relationships with. And, I'm just kind of excited for what is really a fresh slate with this Orioles team and a really young core guys who, haven't, established themselves in the major league so far, haven't made a lot of those relationships that players do with reporters. So kind of excited with this team to kind of get in on the ground floor and, be a part of this beat for a while.
You kind of led perfectly into the next question. How excited are you to dive in and really cover a team like this? Like you said, is just young core loaded from top to bottom. I mean, again, established superstars on the major league level, but like you said, I mean, countless prospects who are knocking on the door for, you would think, stardom. Again, top 50 guys, top 10 guys. How excited are you to, again, like cover in and just, go through the season with a team like this?
Yeah, I'm super pumped, and I don't know if I should even say this on the public airwaves, but I've carried a bit of a curse with me since my start to my career. I covered the Nationals for 2 seasons. In those 2 seasons, they missed the playoffs and traded guys like Max Scherzer and Juan Soto at the deadlines. And then I switched over to the Capitals for hockey, and the Caps missed the playoffs for only the second time in the last 15 years. And then we're halfway through a season in which it doesn't look like they're going to be making it back once again. And Alex Ovechkin fell off of his goal-scoring pace. So I don't have the best juju, I'll admit. But this team, I think it's Matt Weyrich curse avoidant with how it's built. It certainly looks the part, like I said, of a massive contender in the American League. And with all the talent they have top to bottom and the potential to cover a playoff series, I mean, I'm stoked. It's going to be sick.
We got to get a tracker on that. Like, if they're, at X record, like heading into the trade deadline or the All-Star game, it's like, oh, the Weyrich curse, or are we a little worried about that? But no, I think you'll be fine. I think it might be proof here, and maybe you and Rubenstein coming in, that's going to be the tide turning for everyone. But
I will say, in my first 5 games since leaving the Capitals beat, Ovi has scored in every game.
Of course.
So,
yeah. 6 in a row.
Maybe that's been lifted over there. I don't know.
Yeah, who could say, really? But yeah, you mentioned the DC thing and covering the Nationals, obviously, and you have some proximity here, obviously, as you're growing up, and then you're JMU guy, you come back, you cover the DC teams again. Do you have any experiences with Camden Yards yet, and kind of what's been your take on covering the proposed improvements to the area? Because that's another really big storyline that has kind of gotten washed out a little bit with the Burns move and the Rubenstein sale.
Yeah, I have absolutely loved every trip I've ever made to Camden Yards. I mean, it's 100% one of the best ballparks in baseball and has some of the best food in baseball, which is the way to my heart for sure. I have a lot of friends who are Orioles fans growing up. I was born in 97 and the Nats moved to DC in 05. So I was 8 years old. And I was part of that first generation of fans to kind of grow up with the Nats around, but they're still kind of building that fan base around there. So there's a lot of friends who had older brothers or parents who were big Orioles fans, and that got passed down to them down in Northern Virginia. So there's certainly still a massive contingent of Orioles fans down there, and made many trips up to Baltimore. I love the city, love the ballpark, and I think that if they are able to tap into those renovations that they've talked about with Camden Yards, I have to think that the ballpark experience is only going to improve. Though I will say, if it's true that the press conference view, the press row view is going to change, which I think it's the best view in baseball for a press corps, that will definitely suck. I would hate to lose that, but other than that, I think there's only good things to come in that regard.
Do you have a favorite hot dog topping? I gotta ask.
So I'm the least picky eater you've ever met. I will eat absolutely anything, and I will load up a hot dog with pretty much everything and anything that is offered to me. So if it's we're doing cheese and beef and whatever, brisket I've done before. Have you ever guys done the Costco? You take the chicken bake, you
Mm-hmm.
open that up, you put a hot dog in the middle, and then you take the cheese off of a piece of pizza and you lay that on top over the entire thing. It's an experience that only God himself could have passed down. it is something that I have to recommend you try because it's amazing. So I will.
Yeah, I'd at least try that once. Yeah, I'd see how it went, but it sounds like it would taste great once.
Oh yeah, I mean it's a lot on the stomach, but the whole thing is only like $9. So like it's hard to hate that.
Costco, baby. Yeah,
that's right.
I love a good Costco dog. Real quick, going back to the press box, you don't like the Nats press box 3.5 miles up in the air?
I bought a pair of binoculars. I was binoculars guy up there, and I got 20/20 vision. I have no problem seeing. But if you want to know who is warming up in the visitors bullpen out in left field, I mean, there's no way you're making out number 64 versus 68 on somebody's back. Like you've got to have some kind of binoculars there. So, I mean, it's cool to get the whole view and you can see the city and stuff behind it, which for a long time was filled with, construction, skyscraper stuff. But now it's finally built out. It's a little bit better. But yeah, you are way up there.
Yeah, you won't have that issue at Camden Yards. But anything you're looking forward to doing around the city? Again, if you're going to be in Baltimore, any food spots? We recommend Jimmy's Seafood, obviously.
I was going to bring that up.
Yeah, you have to. But again, anything in the city that you're kind of itching to go see or visit?
Well, I'm looking at places to live right now. I still haven't moved up there. I'm still down in Northern Virginia commuting a little bit. So definitely, if you got any recommendations in Fells Point and Canton, those are the 2 places I'm looking at. My wife and I are really excited for the opportunity to move up to this new city. Obviously, we've been to Baltimore many times, but it's another thing to live and ingratiate yourself in a completely new environment. So super excited for that. But I've never been to the aquarium. So I don't know. I think I might have gone when I was like 5 years old, but obviously I don't really remember that. So that is obviously at the top of the list of places to go. But I love food. So, any recs you guys got, please send them my way. I'll check them all out.
Eric, do you know the name of the pirate booze cruise? I did it with Spenny once for Fran's birthday.
I don't, but yeah, we've done it at work. I forget. That's a must do. That's an absolute.
I forget what it's called, but just look up pirate ship booze cruise. You hop on it, all you can drink, and yeah, a lot of dancing and just debauchery. It's good for, again, that's a one-time thing. You do it once and you're good. But yeah, a lot of good stuff. Cat's Eye Pub for a little jazz, and a Guinness if you're into that sort of thing. So yeah, a lot of good stuff in the Fells Canton area. I'm sure you're gonna love it.
Hell yeah, let's get it.
Awesome, man. Well, that's pretty much all we got for you. How about you go ahead and plug your social media and all the work you're doing with the Sun before we get you out of here?
Yeah, absolutely. You can check me out over on Twitter/X at by Matt Weyrich, and that's WEYRICH for those listening. My work over at Baltimore Sun is rolling out along with Jacob, who just got to Sarasota today, February 14th. As you said, Valentine's Day. He, I guess, had to do dinner plans early. But super excited for the content we're going to be rolling out for you guys over the next couple of weeks. Got some TikTok stuff brewing as well. We're filling it out. So yeah, you can definitely go check everything out over at baltimoresun.com, and everything that I write will be put up on my Twitter.
Awesome. Well, like I told you in the DM, you're doing a great job, and always good to get some new blood in there into the beat ranks. So thanks for your time here, and keep up the great work. Okay.
Awesome. Appreciate it, fellas.
Thanks.